You can't come at your cat with this nervous energy all the
Right.
time, because your cat feels that, it sees that, and is like, why are they nervous? Should I be nervous? And then they act like that, and you're just like creating more of a problem. If everybody looked at cats and was like, you are your own being and great creature, and we're sharing this space together, they're not just a pet, they're their own little guy or girl.
Your little
And
furry roommates. Yeah.
yeah, and if there are things that seem like behavioral, or, oh, they don't like this, or they act out of this, maybe taking that a second and being like, wait, why are they acting like this? Because there's typically a stimulus of like what is causing that issue.
If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment about the episode. And if you're watching on Spotify or listening on a traditional podcast platform, please follow, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review if you would be so kind. Thank you. Welcome to the Way to Know You podcast, Season 2, Episode 32. My name is Nick Rounds, and I will be your host. My next guest has been rehabilitating and rescuing cats professionally for 6+ years. Focusing on high-risk cats who needs extra special care, my guest is truly a cat whisperer. In addition to rescuing my cats, Ghost and Crow, and rehabilitating them, she's rescued and rehomed 5,000 plus cats to date. Millicent Saint. Wait, I know you. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the intro, you're the reason that I have 2 cats, and I'm so thankful for the 2 cats that I have, and you took care of them. I believe that they were rescued from a fire in Southern California. Do you have full context?
They were.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do I have full context of what?
Of what the situation of like what happened to them before you adopted them and rehabilitated them?
Yeah, I actually had heard about the fire, which was in a shelter out there, and because of the circumstances and just like the time and date, like the neighboring places couldn't take in the 2 that had survived. And I said, well, hey, put them on a train. I'm here, and at the time I was in Seattle, and that's what they did. And I have my name out there for a lot of rescues and other cat places and vets, where if there are situations like this and people are trying to find someone to take care of them and maybe they keep getting denied, I'm kind of that last call. I will do it. And so I got the call and I said, yeah, I'm here. Let's get them down here. And they're like, they're really scared. And I'm like, it's fine. We're going to be fine. And yeah, they arrived within the day. And that's how I ended up meeting them.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for your work. And you've 5,000 plus cats to date, which is insane, and it's been a variety of things. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. It's really just selfish because obviously because of you. Ooh, wrong way. These guys are in my
I
life.
completely understand. I have a huge enthusiasm when it comes to cats in general. You think with like
you
everything that I do that I wouldn't like lose the energy, but like I love it. I love them. They're the cutest. So I'm very happy you ended up with 2.
Well, let's actually start there. Like, because a cat lady is not made overnight, or sometimes they are, I guess. But where did the trouble start for you? Like, when did you become a full blown cat lady in your early days?
I have kind of always been this way. When I was growing up, my best friend was my cat. I loved the guy. He was everywhere within a foot of me at all times. And that kind of just sparked the, like, these are the best creatures in the world, for me. And when I left for college, unfortunately I couldn't bring him with me because he was my parents' cat, but also because he was nearing, I think, 14 years old, but he was high risk because he was extremely obese but healthy, and he couldn't fly. And it just was one of those, like, it wasn't worth the potential of having any sort of issues for him due to the flight. And he was happy at my parents' house, so I couldn't just, like, uproot his whole life. But that 1 year that I went without a cat was the most miserable time of my life. So I was like, this is really hard. So I moved out of the dorms because you can't have cats in college and dorms. I got myself just absolutely the worst like studio ever that I could afford in Chicago, and it was only like 300 square feet. I swear to God, it was a twin bed in like a toilet. And I was like, yay, I can get a cat. And so that was that for me. I had a college friend, and she had found this cat outside that was kind of beat up, and she had managed to get it into her entryway and then couldn't do anything else with it. It wouldn't let her touch, and I was like, I'm on my way. So I'm like, this is my cat. First one I heard about, I was like, yes. I go over there, I pick up the guy, and that's my cat, Chums, who is my big tuxedo cat. If you've ever seen, I post about him sometimes.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing you in a casino at a slot machine, and Chums was like on your lap. Because
Yes,
he's a service cat, right?
he is, and I know that people gauge what a service cat is with caution. I have advocated for myself, and it is a personal thing that I have that he has gone through the paperwork and whatever. And yeah, he's my life companion. He can go where I go. We're tied at the hip. So yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my first. Gosh, and forgive me if I start like monologuing, because
No, I mean, madam, this is what you're here for. I'm the one asking questions.
Right.
I always want to be the most boring person in the episode. You're the star, so by all means, please monologue. Otherwise, Ghost will monologue for you.
All right. So, Chums, he was my first special needs cat. He was a nightmare. He had lived up in the streets of Chicago. I had assumed when I got him that he was a younger cat. Because he was like very small. And it turned out he was malnourished and actually about maybe 3 or 4 years old, and he grew incredibly fast once he like started getting food, and I was like, this isn't a kitten. And anyway, so he had some head trauma, and unfortunately part of his jaw had kind of shifted and a tooth was like impaling. And anyway, I took him to the vet, and because I just got a new cat, and like you do, you have to go take them to get their shots and other things.
Right.
And I showed up at the vet, and I say, my cat's kind of angry. I don't know anything about his backstory. He doesn't let me touch his face. He's upset. Something's going on. Like, what can we do? I ended up with probably like $3,000 vet bill to extract the tooth and whatever. and I was not prepared for this thing. I just kind of went all out to get my apartment that I could even have a cat in. And so I think I was just like 19 years old, spending all my money on this cat that wouldn't even let me touch him. And I had talked to them and was like, well, like, what can I do? Like, and they said, well, if you don't want him, because like he's not very sociable and it's gonna be a difficult like house pet, they said. And if you don't want him, like we could put him down. And I like was floored. I was like, what? There's no other situation. There's no shelter. There's no person who's trained in this. I was like, you're just gonna take this cat that clearly has every right to be as upset as it is and just say, well, there's nothing we can do. And so I said, absolutely not. This is my guy. We're going to do the surgery. He's coming home. And so I shared this awful tiny studio with Chums, who was a little monster. Like, he was awful. He would just sit behind my toilet, and anytime you tried to use it, he would like jump up and just absolutely attack your legs, your butt. It was a hazard. I had to use the gym bathroom in my apartment building because I couldn't use my own. And he just had no willingness to change. He was just like who he was. Honestly, I felt betrayed at the gods for giving me a cat that like didn't like me. I was like, I loved my cat from home. Like, cats are the world. This is everything I wanted. And then I get one that is just a force to be reckoned with. Gosh, it was so bad once. I was in a college class, and this isn't a laughing matter to talk about. Well, it is, but it isn't. A teacher pulled me aside and was like, Millicent, we need to talk about your cutting problem. And I was like, what? And they said, I've seen your arms. They're covered in scabs and lines. And I said, oh, I have a crazy cat. Like, my cat is crazy. And she was like, I need you to still go see the counselor, make sure that everything's fine. And I was like, no, this is really my cat. But like, when I say he was a lot, he was a lot. And I love him. I was very, very patient, but I kid you not, there was a day that I like opened the window and was kind of like, go your own way. Like, please go. Like, just like rid me from this not fun existence. And anyway, when I had done that, he sat at the window and he just like looked in at me. And I was like, damn it, this is my cat. And so I'm like, open up the door. I'm like, come on back in. Still like doesn't let me touch him. Yeah, so that went on for about a year. And then the changing moment for him was I had gone on like a 4-day vacation. And this was the first time he had been without me. And I left out just some food. It wasn't like an excess of food. It was enough food. It wasn't as much as he like eats, because he eats a lot. But it was just like enough to get him by. And I was like, whatever, my angry cat. And I was like, you'll be fine with this bowl of food. Anyway, knowing that like he was gonna need food when I got back, but I was coming back. And so I got back, and it was actually the very first time I had like sat down on my bed, and he came over to me, and he sat in my lap, and he was just like calm, and he just like looked at me, and I was like, am I gonna get bitten? What is going on? And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. trying to take a picture, like, yay. And anyway, we had this like 5 minutes where he just sat there, and then he got up, and then he ate the food that I had given him. But it was like this moment where he recognized that I had been helping him. And I don't think he fully had grasped that until I wasn't there and no one fed his food bowl. Cats, simple creatures, really. Anyway, so that was kind of a change for us. He started hanging out, not guarding the toilet, and we started getting closer, and that was awesome. I was still like, cats are wonderful. Maybe I should get another one. And so now, let's see. I finished college in 3 years, so I think like a year and a half went by, and I was like, I'm getting another cat. I just finished college, and I was just like, it's time. I had a little bit bigger of a place, and I was like, I just want to have more. And I felt that I strongly believe that all cats should have a companion. I don't think that it is right to keep a solitary cat. They are pack animals, and they really thrive on having someone or something to interact with.
Yep.
And so I kind of didn't like that I just had one cat. I was like, I'm not even preaching what I believe. So I was like, time to get another cat. So I went to the shelter and I adopted the cat that had been there the longest. He had been in the shelter for 4 years, and a really sweet guy, really nothing wrong with him except that he does have a dental condition, so his teeth sometimes have more issues. Again, nothing like serious, but that had been a reason why people didn't want him. And so I was like, this guy is great, come on home. He had actually bit me in the shelter, and I was like, he's gonna be perfect. He can stand up to Chums. If Chums like is, I'm like, this is great. And so I got home, and this was Romeo, who is my orange and white big guy cat. And we got home, and turns out Romeo lied on his resume. He's an angel, a very sweet guy, and he, for the life of him, cannot stand his ground. And Chums was like, I don't really like you. I'm not really vibing with who you are. And Romeo's like, I'm gonna be on your shoulder all the time. You're gonna care for me. And anyway, I was like, yay, got this cat that likes me. But like now Chums and I had a past, so I'm like, I don't know, he's my best buddy. I can't have a friend he doesn't like. So to kind of solve their issue, I was like, a third cat is perfect. And so this is all within that like same year. So now I am on Craigslist, and I'm like trying to find a kitten, because I had actually never had a kitten before. I always had older cats. And I found this post. This woman was like, cat had kittens, would need them gone immediately, just like 5 weeks old, and posted this little like black kitten, and I was like, on my way. So I picked up that kitten, I brought him home, and then something that I witnessed was that Chums and Romeo both were so in love with this little kitten that they forgot about their own issues. Maybe I'm just lucky, but I was like, wow, this like is a whole dynamic switch. They like really both wanted to care for this like little creature, that they stopped swatting at each other. They could sit on the same couch. They could sleep in the same bed. as long as this little guy was there. And I was like, wow, it's really interesting that, like, and I'm like, anytime I watch my cats, I like, am always like analyzing and like, oh, this is really like, wow, they're a little being who has thoughts and decides this. And it's just like people watching, but with cats. And so I'm like, wow, that's a kind of cool solution to a problem, especially when everybody was like, I don't know if getting a third cat is gonna really fix what you have going on. You're talking about two cats, grown cats, that aren't getting along, and you just want to throw in another. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure this is gonna work. And it did. So I was now 22, with 3 cats in Chicago. And so that's kind of long answer. That's when I became a cat lady. I was like, no one else has this many cats. No one else is like really this enthused about their cats. And I knew that I had no plan on stopping.
Yeah, I mean, seeing how many cats you're usually taking care of at any given point just always amazes me. Like, I don't know how you juggle it on top of just having your own cats, and just, yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed by it, honestly.
Thank you.
Because I mean, like, there's our buddy.
I want to, when you said so many cats, I want to just point out that in front of me is like a little pile of cats.
Nice.
Everybody, I don't know if you could see that.
Very on brand.
They've been all around me this whole time.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, there's cat people, and then there's you. You're kind of one of one. Yeah, and you're really dialed into like what cats want and need. I mean, you were talking about like the dental issues, and you actually helped me out again with these guys when they were having some behavioral issues, and you gave great tips. And I think just your experience of dealing with so many cats, like, you have a lot of great tips and pointers about that. But when did you realize that you kind of had like a special talent for taking care of cats? Is it really just kind of paying attention to what their kind of messages are sending out?
So that was, I had went to school for fashion, and I worked in the industry and whatever. And it was lovely, and I love art and design, but it's not very sustainable. Not saying that working in cat rescue is any more sustainable, but there's more business there. So I was like thinking about my life, and I had worked in high-end retail and like had a great job and whatever, and I was like, I don't want to be doing this in next year, like, let alone 5 years. And like where that progression of like what that looked like, I was like, it's not really what I want to be doing. So I was like, what do I like doing? And instantly I was like, well, I like to hang out with my cats. And so I'm like, how do I get to do that as my only thing, and like do what I do and make money doing it, and maybe even feel like my life has more of a purpose, just like kind of a goal. And I didn't feel that like working in the fashion industry. I just felt like run down and beat up,
like a cog in the machine, because you're always can be kind of behind on everything, because the trends are always moving, whereas with cats it's like you're dealing with each individual cat as they are, and each of them is going to be their own individual challenge, whereas like fashion has tastemakers and just a bunch of stuff to deal with, but you know that all too well.
Yeah, and so I was just like, what can I do? And that was when it hit me that I needed to start some sort of facility that allowed me to meet cats, hang out with cats, keep more cats, and I was like, let's do it. So I moved to Seattle because that's actually where I'm originally from. But I was also like, there are a lot of people out here in Seattle that like their pets and are kind of like willing to maybe consider alternative like pet care or other things, more so than other places I had considered. And I got into contact with a couple of shelters, and I was like, hey, this is like kind of what I want to do. Where is there room for me? And I ended up going into business with another man, Greg Cross, who is actually still in West Seattle doing cat work, and I highly recommend. But he had kind of a similar idea. He is probably about twice my age, and just like really like cats. He didn't have a business method or kind of like what he was doing, and I was like, you know what? You have the space. I have an idea. Like, trust me, and we're going to do something here. Within the first couple months, I built what I called the Cat Hotel, which was a business facility that had originally just a couple of rooms, and each room was divided by these crates and shelters that were about like 4x6 with little like cat crawly things in them. And anyway, I was like, this is where we're gonna work out of, and let's accept special needs cats, trauma rehabilitation, long-term boarding, and people who just need kind of that different service. I noticed having my own cats, how many times there were situations where a vet visit wasn't even the most like effective method to help an animal.
Sure.
Sometimes people just have general questions. You don't want to go to the vet and pay a whatever down deposit to be like, why does my cat do this at this time? You know, like it just isn't practical. So I started advertising that like, hey, I will help you with whatever you have going on, whether it's I can't trim my cat's nails to my cat got in a fight or they're not getting along or any of those things. I was like, I got you. And it took off. It turns out like a lot of people do obviously really care about their pets, and just kind of wanted more insight. That immediately turned to almost every single client that I had with their own cat. As soon as they had word of mouth of like a cat in extreme need or some sort of rescue situation, was like, hey, I know someone. And that's kind of how I got into the like more special needs and trauma rehabilitation, was people just kept calling me. So I was like, you know what, I can do this. And the best thing about it for me was it never feels like work. I love to spend all my time with cats. There's nothing I would rather be doing. So any client or litter that comes to me, it's another wonderful opportunity and a great day. And I don't know, like, if there's a reason for living, that's it. Because you do what you love and you fill it with what you love. And after the first year of the cat hotel, we had been fully booked, which was at the time holding about 30 cats at a time. And we bought out the space next door and we tripled in size. And Greg was like, you can take care of this many, right? And I'm like, I can do it. And so it was just me. And I lived right across the street, so I would be back and forth. from my house. And I mean, that's what I did. And I would bring my own cats over in the stroller to hang out. So like no one was left alone. And I just took whatever came my way. And it was awesome. And yeah, and so that was my time in Seattle. And then I moved out to Arizona to actually do the same thing. However, there were a couple of hiccups moving out here, which was obviously COVID. Unfortunately, the woman who I was going to go into business with, she lost her place almost immediately. I don't know how familiar anyone is with what happened to rescues during COVID, but that was that they stopped doing intakes, they stopped having volunteers, and they stopped having walkthroughs to adopt animals. It was extremely detrimental to their flow of just making sure the animals are finding homes. I mean, a lot of times people are walking past a cute place and they're like, oh, kittens, and they go in and they fall in love with someone, and they're getting a cat that day.
Right.
And so without that ability, I mean, it's rough. So that was kind of that first year of COVID. And so I'm like, oh, my business space gone. And so I had to think fast. And so I have actually been renovating I have a house now. So I've been renovating this house to be my space and my business space. Meanwhile, still taking on individual clients as they come. I have like the means to host like 8 or 9 on top of the 11 cats that I have. But when it's finished, it will actually be a lot more. But then I was like, well, now I'm not seeing as many cats. What do I do? So reached out to my local people, and I'm like, hey, what's going on in the cat world out here? And now I have taken up feral tracking, where I have been part of a trap and release program to monitor the wild cats. And I didn't know this moving out here, but I'm in Arizona, and there are so many feral cats, and they are multiplying at just an extreme rate. And then it gets so hot, and then they all go into just like an extreme need of care, and most of the time that isn't out there. So what we do is we find out, and we have a tip line for like, if you see more than like 5 wild stray cats, typically means there's a colony nearby, and people will say, hey, this is going on, or they're lingering here. And we catch them, we spay and neuter them. And then if any of them are very sociable and can be held, and like most of the time these cats are not, and that's okay. They were not designed, like they have not lived their life to be a domesticated cat. They live in the desert, and that's okay. But sometimes they are, and then they'll immediately get rehabilitized to go out for adoption. But if not, they just get returned to their area, and we feed them and keep track of how many there are, and make sure that that number isn't increasing. And so that was kind of different than what I was doing in Seattle, because I'd actually never really dealt with too many feral cats out in the city. Here, they're everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like in the suburbs or like other places where there's just like a lot more open space, it's way more common. The funniest thing it's not really funny, it's just kind of sad, but there's weirdly a lot of bunnies on the Microsoft campus, because I think somebody nearby Microsoft like left some bunnies out, and then they just multiply it, and now there's a ton of bunnies that just live on the Microsoft campus. So
Yeah, I mean, it happens really fast. I mean, most people don't even know this, but a kitten, so I gauge a kitten, is like anywhere to up to a year. That's a kitten. That's a baby cat. Well, if that baby cat is a girl, she can get pregnant at 4 months old. And in the next 2 months, you could have 5 more. And especially with these colonies, like, it's what happens. And yeah, so I have been doing a lot more work with rescuing. We found this like abandoned litter versus client based, but I still have clients, but I don't know if that makes sense.
no, yeah, no, it makes
kind
sense.
of a different thing for me, which has been fun. And I now have a feral cat that lives inside. And that's fun, and we're still kind of like working. You can't touch her, but she had babies. I found her just like taking out the trash, and I was like, this cat's acting weird, and she's kind of large, and I was like, come on inside. The next day she came up to me, and I helped her like deliver her babies. She had like a breech and pregnancy, so the first one was upside down, so I was like, oh no, these might not even come out alive. We got that one out, and then the other, and I was like, thought she was done, and then like an hour later another one came out with like the ripped placenta, and I was like, wow. And so now she had 3, and I swore I was going to put them up for adoption, and now they all live with me. So
That's how it happens. Yeah,
I know, and it's so cute. They're a little family. I can't. And I mean, they've just been a gift, and so there's like really no reason. I'm like, this, just a couple more doesn't faze me. So
famous
I'm like,
last
we'll
words.
be
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, so that was my first addition to my family in a while. Was
That's
that
awesome.
set of 4. Yeah.
Has there? Yeah, I mean, you just kind of rattle off a mix of really challenging experiences and also just some rewarding moments. But from your time of just all the different cats you've seen, what have been some of the most challenging and or rewarding moments that you've had to face in recent memory? Beyond obviously COVID throwing you a curveball and that stuff, but mainly just like on a cat level.
Challenging would be the hoarding situations that I get called to. They are not pretty pictures, and you can have maybe 60 cats in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you really open every cabinet, and there's like, oh, there's 3 more, and as a person who is like, I love as many cats as possible, you do have to assess your abilities before just jumping in and saying, I'm going to have a whole pack of animals here. There are many reasons why it could get like that, and I think that people are often afraid to reach out when it has gotten to that, or they don't know what to do, and that's when you get cats being dumped off in boxes, or they show up at your whatever business front. But the most challenging is a death of someone who has been hoarding, and then the cats have been there for a while, and it's the landlord who is calling, and they say, hey, I can't even go in there. Someone needs, like, I called animal control, but like, they're not even wanting to come, like, who is going to actually do something that could maybe help these animals. And so that's something that I'll do. And it's hard because it's messy. It's kind of heartbreaking to see a bunch of animals, even though they have companions, they don't have social skills. And so just like, it just is hard. But it's doable. And in those situations, what I typically do is you go in and you start and you try to count like the cats, and see if they're grouping off anyway. And then everybody gets a checkup and a bath, and you contact absolutely everybody you know in the area, and you say, hey, I have 60 cats. And they're like, not again. And you're like, come on, what are we gonna do? And they're like, stop messaging me. And I'm like, I'm driving over, you're getting a cat today. No, it's we just have to, we reach out to people and kind of talk about it. Most of the time, shelters have a limit of what cats they can take and where they're from, and blah blah blah. Foster families here are so essential. I have worked with so many people who have been able to foster an extra cat or two in the meantime to help them find a forever home. And that's kind of the like unspoken heroes of like animal rescue, is those people who are like, yeah, I can have a couple extra in this time, and that gives them an opportunity to actually like have a life versus going to a shelter and potentially, depending on whether it's no kill, get adopted. So yeah, and obviously I take in as many as I can, but you can only do so much, and so it just really is kind of that like quick networking. Anyway, that's a hard thing for me, but doable. And then ultimately too rewarding, because you get stories maybe in 2 years, they're like, hey, I just found out you were the person who had like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the cat that I pulled from a cupboard, and I gave it a bath, and I made sure all of its limbs were still where they're supposed to be, and all these things that I do, and it's living a great life over in where, who knows where, but it's rewarding. Yeah, so that was like the next thing, like the best, what did you say?
The most challenging, the most rewarding, yeah, of just the Oreo cookie of it, if you will, of like the really tough stuff dealing with hoarders. I can only imagine that's really heartbreaking, and then the rewarding part of it is a little self-explanatory, but it's just more of like
Yeah, I mean, the most rewarding is that I get to hang out with animals all day. That I know more cats than I know people. I really do. I love that they have my full attention. And I don't know, I wake up every day and I see a cat and I smile. And that's, I mean, that's the most rewarding thing of it all, I think. Is I'm doing something that I love, and they're just really cute.
But of course. So you kind of touched on this a little bit in terms of like what your schedule's like, but I guess can you talk about roughly like what does it take to take care of that many cats? Like what is your schedule like? Like what are the motions or routines you have to go through to actually do what you do?
Well, you firstly have to be ready to give all of your time to cats. Um, you don't really have any other time. I don't have a social life. I don't have I don't go out places. I don't really like do downtime that's not with where all the animals that I'm working with is. I personally like that. I'm very introverted. That's fine with me. I don't recommend having this many cats if you have to travel into the city or wherever and you're going to be gone all the time, or you just want to travel a lot where it's just not, again, the situation has to meet. But what kind of like a schedule looks like is I'm on their time. And I mean, you can kind of gauge cats. If they're older, they tend to have their set schedule. And I like to work with the schedule that I observe, versus like making them try to do whatever I want. You just like, I don't know. I just watch them and I'm like, this is what we're doing, like this cat has dinner at this time and then he goes to this room and it's just is what it is. Kittens are a lot more, I need your attention all the time. I want to follow you everywhere. So if there are kittens, you'll have one in your hand the whole day, and you'll be cycling them out as you're doing everything else. They're just a little bit more socially demanding and they want that attention. I always have an area that's set up for a potential antisocial cat. That one can't be around anybody else. That's always ready to go. I have another large crate situation that is set up for emergency births. That's always ready to go. And no one touches that until that's like happening. And it's just kind of like being prepared for the unexpected. Obviously, if I'm doing a client-based service, I know what the schedule is looking like. I know if they're being dropped off. I know if I'm going over to their place. I know what that looks like, and you can schedule that. But you don't always know what is happening if you work with rescues. So just like having the space set aside, so like if they show up or if that's needed, it's ready to go, and so you don't have to spend the like hour and a half setting up a birthing suite. It's just you're ready for that. And mainly just being prepared to clean up messes all day. I find that with as many cats as I do, you scoop litter constantly. It gets removed constantly. That there isn't like a set schedule of I do this at this time, you do it all day long. I like to multitask and do things, so like I don't really, once you like do something so much, you don't really see it as much of a chore. And so like people are always like, oh, you probably spend like way too much, and I'm like, well, not really. Like if I'm in this room, I clean up the messes that are there. If I'm in that room, I also clean up the messes, and you just do it as you're like moving through your day. And yeah, but there certainly aren't hours as like one clocks into work versus like not, because you kind of just have to be ready at all time. And then just like being aware too of what's going on. And I keep odd hours. Like I obviously sleep at night, but I do get up in the middle of the night and do rounds and like make sure everything's good. And if like cats have medicine or whatever that they need, those obviously are scheduled times. So
Right.
like if you have an insulin cat or another thing, like those obviously set schedules. But other than that, it's just being there with them and being aware of what's going on. And yeah.
Awesome. So you kind of already touched on this, mentioning specifically that, most people know that cats do things on their own terms and you kind of have to deal with whatever vibe they're putting out. So beyond paying attention to what cats are trying to tell you, which all people absolutely should do, what are some common things that you wish more cat owners would do? Just in general.
Mainly, I have like kind of one ultimate that like hits every sub topic. People need to realize that their cat is so much smarter and in tune and on like a higher frequency even than like we can comprehend. And they get it. They know. And I think so many people forget this when they're like working with cats or even with their own cat. They're like, oh, I taught them this. I'm like, no, he probably taught you something right there. Like, you don't actually know. Just like really, like, I think what I'm trying to say is like, cats are so in tune with themselves and their self-preservation and their identity of who they are. And they make active choices. And I'm not saying that dogs or other animals don't, but
Sure.
I am saying that they are more selective, which means that somewhere in their mind they have like weighed pros and cons and decided that like this is a good thing or this is not a thing or this person is worth like being nice to or this is a person you don't interact with. And I personally have always found it just absolutely fascinating to watch them interact and do things. And I mean, it's for me, it's really the little things. I mean, I have watched cats learn how to turn like door handles. And they watch you and they learn things and they pick it up and then they'll team together to do things. And that is incredible. It like blows my mind. And I also just like I feel so blessed and happy that like especially with my animals that like they choose to be right next to me. They choose to be on my pillow at night. They choose to care. And often with the animals that I work with and some of my special needs cats, that wasn't always their go-to. So there was a moment of like acknowledgement. And I just kind of like revel in like how sweet that is. There's this little furry creature that is living one way and then it's like, you know what, this person's all right, this is cool. Like, and cats, they really look to you and they see your energy and as I said before, they're more in tuned and they have, I mean, it depends on who you ask, but there is like the frequencies of energies and the vibrational sounds that they can hear that humans can't. And they tend to be aware of emotions. They react to situations. It's awesome. But like you can like witness them doing all of this. And I kind of lost my train of thought because I was like, that's so cool. But
Well, I mean,
but
you're just, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I don't know. I like it. I don't know. I just think they're really cool animals. And I know that in my moments of like need or despair or something's happened, it's Chums showing up and like he puts one paw on me, like, and then like when I like, and it's so weird, like when I cry he gets upset and that's the only time he bites and scratches me, and I'm like, he's trying to tell me to stop. But it's just like,
no cry, only bite.
It's just like, wow, like this little animal will come from the other room and be like, hey, don't be down, I'm gonna bite you now. Like, and I love that. I think it's so cool. And I think that so many times people and owners and just like general, when they look at cats, they're like, oh, cats are their own, like whatever, they're independent. And yes, they are. But I don't think people give them enough credit to like how much they're understanding, how much you impact their life, how much another cat can impact their life. I hear the main thing I hear is, oh, I can't get another cat because my one cat is so antisocial and she gets so jealous. And I'm like, that is not true. You have kept a cat alone and it doesn't have social skills, and that's normal. But it's not getting jealous. Like, that's not the thing. It doesn't know how to act. So why don't you bring in another cat and act like it's okay and show them that it's a good time, and stop being worried about like what your cat is potentially going to do or react or hiss or whatever. And I think that's another thing. It's like when people are like, oh, they bit me and now I'm so cautious. And it's like, okay, that was a normal thing for it to do, but you can't come at your cat with this nervous energy all the time, because your cat feels that, it sees that, and it's like, why are they nervous? Should I be nervous? And then they act like that, and you're just like creating more of a problem. And I think what I'm trying to say is, if everybody looked at cats and was like, you are your own being and great creature, and we're sharing this space together, and it's like not they're not just a pet, you know, they're their own little guy or girl,
your little furry roommates.
Yeah. And if there are things that seem like behavior, or oh, they don't like this or they act out at this, maybe taking that a second and being like, wait, why are they acting like this? Because there's typically a stimulus of like what is causing that issue. And a lot of my clients or my cats that I've worked with, I can figure out what is going on within an hour of just hanging out with the cat and watching what it's doing. Because they tell you things and they show what is going on. And yeah, so I just wish people would really like just like take a minute and kind of like look at them as like another person per se versus an animal, because they definitely, I mean, I believe that all my cats are smarter than me. They know things, and there are just things that I can't explain that they can do, or sense the weather and storms. Like, we can't do that, but somehow they know, and they're doing their habits that they do when they sense a storm is coming hours before it even happens. And so I just feel like when you see those things happen, obviously there's so many more things, but like we just don't have conscious acknowledgement of like everything. I like to think cats do. And so I don't know, I just go with it.
That makes sense. Are there any other just general things that you think are really important for people to know about in terms of like just upkeep for cats? given the fact that you've dealt with a lot of cats that have been traumatized or had behavioral issues, are there any common tools that you use that is just a great advice for like how to make cats feel more comfortable and more welcome and chill?
That will be a whole nother podcast, but let me give you a couple of things
Sure.
that I have noticed that really do help. First of all, I think that I know that people love to feed their cats on schedules in like morning or night. I think that cats actually prefer if there is always one full bowl of kibble. Cats are territorial, they are hungry, they get confused. I mean, a human wouldn't like it if we tried to be like, you can only eat at 7 and exactly 8 twice, and this is exactly how much. Like, you don't know what they did that day. Like, they could have had a really hyper day and they're burning through calories and they're very hungry. They also can learn how to, like, I can't think of the word, moderate how much they eat. Obviously, if your cat is overeating, then you can be like, I'm setting a more strict like guideline for what their meals are like. But I find that a lot of multi-cat home situations, it's because there is never a full bowl. And it is a very simple fix. If they know that if they wanted to eat that they can, it takes a huge stress off of them. And I find that they're just generally a little bit better. And also, a lot of people say that the cats will be like acting out because they were late to feeding, or they get confused because the time changed. Like, it's because you've given this weird scenario that like isn't real. Just let them eat. So huge advocate of just like trusting that your cat can handle food. They like it. It's good. Obviously, there are situations that are special cases where this may not be the best suggestion. I'm not saying as like allergy cat should have access to whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying.
Right.
It tends to
But in
help.
general, yeah.
Another thing is keeping a travel crate or whatever, something similar to, if not the one that they travel in a common space area that they have access to all the time. It is a lot less intimidating for a house cat to see the crate be pulled from this weird spot that they've never seen, and now they know that they're going someplace. That's a hard thing. If it is a more common thing that they maybe even hang out in just because it's a nice little cave, a trip to wherever they're going won't be as much of an ordeal. So just making sure that they are comfortable with that scenario, because I have met so many cats that have just seen the crate as that one time they went to the vet to get surgery and they will never go in there again. And it has caused problems for cat owners. So that is one thing, to make sure that they're comfortable. And then I think the last thing, I know we're kind of like running on time, I can talk about cats forever, is remembering that your cat is curious and enjoys stimulation. I think often we forget that cats like to go outside. They like to go places. They want to be included. Yes, there is an aspect of training your cat to either like be on a leash or to go places or what that looks like. I think so many people stop at, this is my cat and they're my cat inside. Like, I'm not saying just like open your door and let them run free. I don't let my cats outside. They're not like on their own. Like, it's not that, but I do regularly give them outings, which I've like planned something like, we're going here. And it's a situation where it is, you're building trust with your pet, and just kind of giving them something that's new, and they like it. And whether that new is just like, I live in a condo and like you open the door and they get to run down the hall, like that's something that they get to do and experience, and then they will want to do more things, and that they get the little like bravery and like, I am okay. And humans project onto their cats so much, and I feel like when I am working with a client, I'm like, this problem is something that you're having, and you're the human, and you're reacting and creating the scenario, and your cat is stressed because you are stressed. And you have made this little like drop off stay more of a big deal than it is. And your cat shouldn't be completely afraid of like stepping outside. Like, it just, they shouldn't be. If they are, like, you should be working with them to feel comfortable in their surroundings, because like, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of their life, but like, people move, like stuff happens, and your cat should be able to feel like it can comfortably do that without, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Millicent, thank you so much for your time, your insights, and everything, and most of all for rescuing these nerds. So thank you. Appreciate
Of
you.
course. I love that we have been able to stay in contact over the years, and it's just, I mean, again, grateful that little babies that may not have had the chance are living their best lives and making our lives better, and it's awesome. So I'm happy for you too, and it's been so good to like watch their journey with you. And again, thank you for asking me to chat with you.
Yeah, no, it's been great to talk to you. Speaking of which, is there anything that you'd like to plug before we leave? Social media sites, perhaps a Cash App where people can support you directly, and other cool things happening in your life? The floor is yours.
Mainly, if you don't have a cat, take this as a moment to go get one. I definitely ship adopting cats. Do it. It's a good time. Other than that, if you are in my area and you need cat things or whatever, feel free to reach out. Or even if you're not in my area and have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love just even chatting about things. Sometimes it's really an easy fix and people don't realize. I love to be the person who can help them versus having to go to the vet or something else. Always down to answer questions. And yeah, I do have a Cash App, which is at felinefeisty. And that goes to all the cat services that I pay for, which is a lot, because often in the work that I do, I'm paying forward versus getting paid. I mean, there's a little bit of a balance to it, but yeah, cats, they're expensive sometimes. And yeah, that's that.
Awesome. Millicent, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.